My name is Jens Andersen. I'm the Secretary General of NGVA Europe. My ambition is to explain Europe why we urgently have to use renewable methane, the greenest and cleanest fuel we have today, to achieve climate neutrality and be future-proof for the upcoming hydrogen economy. On the very first day, I had a meeting with representatives of the EU Commission. Despite the coronavirus crisis, everything is, I have to say, very professional with widespread use of video conferencing. What particularly impresses me is the commitment of the small NGVA team and its cooperation with other organizations. That's really excellent. Although the issue of decarbonization is taken very seriously in Brussels, I was nevertheless surprised by the steep learning curve confronting European industry in the field of alternative fuels, propulsion and accounting methodologies. I see it as my central mission to provide information on this. I can tell you, gas is a really clean source of energy, and it will remain so. This fuel will undoubtedly be attractive into your future. However, this gas is not just any old gas. We are talking here about CNG, LNG and biogas. CNG is compressed natural gas. It burns very cleanly, is odorless and convenient. LNG stands for liquefied natural gas. The gas is cooled down to minus 162 degrees Celsius, and then it only takes up 1/600th of original volume. LNG is therefore ideal as a fuel in heavy-duty transport and in shipping. All engines are compatible with a variable share of biomethane. Biomethane is created by the fermentation of all types of biomass. The variable share of methane is critical because combustion of methane releases energy. I myself, I'm a big fan of the use of methane, which is produced from waste, from agricultural residues and from manure. We call it biomethane. And because we use waste, residues and manure converted into fuel for transport, we not only conserve our soils, but also protect the climate. Depending on the waste used, greenhouse gas emissions can even be negative. Yes, we can go below zero. When assessing transport emissions, current legislation is blind on one eye. It is only seeing tailpipe emissions without looking at production pathways, with massive consequences for the overall real emissions of a vehicle. Let's take a practical, real example. When fueling a gas-powered vehicle, I mean a methane-powered vehicle, with biomethane produced out of liquid manure, even negative emissions can be achieved. We are talking about today and affordable. Policymakers therefore need to include the assessment of the fuel dimension when factoring the overall CO2 emissions of a vehicle into future legislation. They must acknowledge the environmental benefits of methane in transport and increasingly support this key technology by channeling investments into related CNG and LNG refueling infrastructure and rewarding the use of biomethane as a transport fuel in general. Let's take Brussels as an example. Around 1.2 million citizens produce some 210 kilotons of biowaste each year. This amounts to 173 kilos for each citizen. This volume of biomass is capable of regenerating 14 kilotons of renewable gas each year. 75,000 cars can be driven on a gas mix with 40% biomethane. This represents a saving of 55% CO2, equating with 85 kilotons of CO2 avoidance, alone in a city like Brussels. The keyword for a closed ecosystem like this is circular economy. Today, vehicles fueled with CNG or LNG run on a fuel mix containing a maximum of 17% biomethane. If the entire fleet would use a biomethane share of 40% by 2030, this would mean 55% less CO2 across Europe. We are fit for 55, so to speak. That reduction, by the way, represents 15 megatons, or in other words, the equivalent of 3.2 million round-the-world flights. the CO2 emissions of a city with a population of 2.1 million people, or the capacity of 755 million trees to convert CO2. And this will also mean savings of fuel costs in the region of 4.5 billion euros each year. The European Union has a huge potential for local production of biomethane up to 1,200 terawatt-hours. Production in this order is not only a great example of the circular economy, it also generates sustainable growth. We can all see that the construction of new infrastructure, let's talk about electromobility, requires an enormous effort, and it's necessary, no doubt about that. But there's a great risk of not achieving the European climate targets if we focus exclusively on a single technological solution. Maximum competition is required for maximum innovation. And I experienced this in the past. This is really the case. And then we also will achieve our targets. We need more than one single technical solution, more competition and less dependence on imported primary energies. European companies are world leaders when it comes to propulsion solutions and infrastructure for gaseous energy sources. In my view, the use of sustainable methane is absolutely crucial for long distances and heavy loads. And this must definitely be reflected in European laws for fleet emissions.